to my journey. Okay. Like I was saying earlier, that this full moon, well, every full moon, just about every full moon, will drag my ass out the house, right? And for whatever reason, this full moon has dragged me out the house early this morning. Early, okay? So, I do have to buy some more doggy pads. I also have to get some more doggy chews to save my shoes, right? These dogs will chew up my shoes. Okay. It looks like it's going to be another beautiful day because the skies are so blue. Okay. I don't really have anything planned. I was listening to this disability attorney, and it was tripping me out because, of course, I can see the double standards. I can see it, like I said, once you see, discrepancies, and you're used to seeing them, you can't unsee them, right? And here's the thing, right? Because when you're disabled, right, meaning you can't work, he started talking about how sometimes, you doing basic maintenance and care, right, can cause you to lose your disability benefits. And I'm like, wait a minute, if they don't have basic, if they don't have the ability to do basic care, they would have to be in assisted living situation, right? And that's not disability, right? That's like hospice or basically, in a living care system, facility. So then, we have to ask ourselves, when did they decide, okay, that's basic living, right? Say, you got, what we call like a terrace lawn. A terrace lawn is something, probably no bigger than 20 square feet of grass, and you're out there mowing the grass, and they're like, they're out there mowing the grass, they're not disabled. It's just like, what? That's, basically, a room-sized lawn, and you're saying that they can't mow the lawn. That's almost like saying they can't sweep the floor in their house. They can't, take a bath by themselves. Shit like that. It's like, okay, so here's the double standard, right? Just like, men have double standards towards women, there's double standards when it comes to, how different races see each other, right? An example would be, oh yes, everybody would, need to have basic, self-care and maintenance, right? If you're a part of the race. But if you're not part of the race, then, you're selfish, or you're abusing the system, or I think one of the things that had really surprised us was, when it came to this SNAP situation, and they started seeing that, it's not just minorities that was on SNAP, right? That there were a lot of people, who had children that they couldn't afford. And they had children specifically, just so that they could get assistance, right? And that's why, a lot of times, people have children for specific reasons, right? Some will be the scapegoat. Some would just be, the black sheep. Another will be the sacrifice. Stuff like that. Because, they just, don't see nothing wrong, in utilizing people for leverage. Even their own blood. And most of the time, that's all they can manipulate, is their own family members and their own blood. They don't have access to other people. They just don't. And even if they had access, that doesn't mean they have influence over other people. However, their family members and their bloodline, they do. They have access to them, and they probably have some form of influence based off of, relationship hierarchy. I was kind of tripping off of that because, I've seen this, right? And here's another thing, right? If you're out here walking around, trying to stop yourself from atrophying, a hateful hater will say, if you can walk around, you can go to work. Well, I just cannot even believe, the way that, some people think. Because, like I said, I have to force myself to get out every day. Just so, not only do I, keep myself, aware and aware of people, because if you isolate yourself to the point where you don't even see other people, and you're limiting yourself to the few steps that you have in your environment, right? And that just depends on how big your home is. And a lot of people who are on disability, they're not living in mansions. They're not. Anyway, I'm gonna go over here to this Dollar Tree, and I'm gonna see if they got a couple of chews and some doggy training pads. And that way, when my dogs are back there, they have something to, chew on and amuse themselves with. because I'm not really sure, what we're going to do today. But we'll see. Hold on. They did not have any puppy training pads. They ran out of them. But I did find these big, gigantic bones. These big bones. And let's see how long it's going to take them to devour this. I got 2 of them. Because Gracie, the puppy, she chomping down like she's a big dog. Like she's a big dog. So, because they didn't have them there, I'm going to have to go to another location and try to find some. But I did want Gracie, to have something to chew on, or, to keep herself occupied, while she's riding with me, in the vehicle. Yeah, seems like there's a little traffic jam here. I used to think that it was like every time I show up someplace, then it just gets filled up with a whole bunch of traffic. And I be trying to avoid traffic. Okay? I'll be trying to avoid the traffic. Sometimes it's almost impossible. Impossible. So I had to update my profile on Uber, and I also have to give them a copy of my insurance card, just so that, just in case, I need, 10 or $20, because that's all I can make with this vehicle. Is like do a delivery or 2 or 3. That's it. And I know some people are like, well, why don't you get you another vehicle? Well, to get another vehicle, I'm probably going to have car notes. And I don't want car notes. Car notes and higher insurance, even though it is on my mind, because they charge like $300, well, let's say $275 to to register an electrical vehicle, whereas a gas-driven vehicle, you only are charged like $75. So it's an extra $200, for an electrical vehicle. I don't know if that's to cover the cost of, the electrical charging stations or what, but that was a surprise, to sit up there and say, my goodness, it's almost $300 to register this vehicle. In the back of my mind, I was like, yeah, they get you coming and going. They will get you coming and going. It kind of makes me want to go look at vehicles. But I promise you, if they give me a vehicle that I could get up out of Dodge, I just might get up out of Dodge. I'm serious. I mean, I love the Texas blue skies, okay? But I don't like Texas winter. I don't like the winter time in Texas. It's cold as F. Right? And I don't know if y'all remember 2021 when we had that freeze and power outage. And yeah, aquariums was freezing. The cold was so severe, right? And of course, I'm thinking again, it's because we've been playing with that liquid nitrogen for so long that, it just, it just can't evaporate. It just, we think it's evaporating, but we don't really see it per se because, it's really not visible, right? It's only visible in the form of, like maybe a gas or a cloud or smoke or, like fume, you know what I mean? So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to ride over here to CarMax. So I can get an idea, because I can get an idea of what the resale, cost of cars, and they don't do no haggling, right? So because they don't do any haggling, you kind of get the idea that they're putting things out there at kind of blue book price. Like, this is blue book price and we're not going to haggle. So okay, CarMax is not open until 10 o'clock. And it's now 9:37, so it's not really open to the public. I don't know if we can walk around on, the property and look at vehicles when they're not open. But I don't want no trouble. I don't want no trouble. Okay. So, let's see what we're gonna do now. So, I don't know what made me get up. Like I said, it must be the moon. Something made me get up and get out of the house early. early, because even though I got out relatively early, I had to force myself, hold on, don't be rushing out there, just hold on, right? That is kind of what I had to do just to get out at this, moderate time that I got going on here. But I think I'll go over here to this other Dollar Tree and see if I can get the pads, because I really want to get the pads on out the way. Now, if there's somebody running around trying to buy up all the damn pads, I think you could get a better deal if you buy them in quantity. Right? You can buy them in quantity. Now, I know Amazon, they sell the training pads, and some of them smell pretty good. I mean, they smell like fresh linen, because they're scented, to obscure the scent of, the urine and poop and stuff. A shout out to DoorDash. DoorDash has been posting lately, and she's been posting, her feelings about working at Amazon, right? And she's a picker at Amazon. That was the last position that I had when I was working at Amazon, was as a picker. And yes, you go in every day with the intentions of hitting, 400 per hour pick count, right? You go in there every day. That's your target. But there's, like I said, there's all kinds of problems that can occur, such as things dropping in the aisle. And when things drop in the aisle, it's like a whole act of Congress, whose fault it is, that thing, dropped in the aisle. and ended up on the floor. That was one of the things that just, really irked me when, a manager came up to me talking about I was the last person that touched these shelves when the item fell off, and I'm like, why are you talking to me about that? Because items can fall off the shelf for many different reasons. Sometimes it's just gravity, right? And they were like, yeah, well, you should be placing the items in the bin, and I'm like, look, I got 10 seconds. I got 10 seconds to find and retrieve an item, and you're telling me that I need to also stack these items a certain way? Yeah, don't come to me with this mess. Okay. Thankfully, this one still had a half a box left of the doggy training pads. Okay. So I can feel relieved that, I got that under control. Now, I may have thought that I would be able to go out here and maybe do a delivery or two. All I had to do was give them, the information that they required, but that is not so. Let's see what they say. Cause I gave them a picture of my driver's license, and looks like I'm able to. It looks like I'm able to utilize their services, because they don't show me as needing attention right now. Which leads me to believe that they also have access as to whether or not, your insurance is updated. See, my screen is stuck. It's stuck here. It's not moving. Okay? And this is part of the problems that we have when we're out here delivering, is when the screens get stuck. And we're trying to, make a delivery and such things. So, yeah, I'm trying to see what the notifications are. It says, Cherie, you've regained access. Okay? So it took about an hour, to regain, to give me access to to be able to deliver again. Let's see. Then it says you're unable to go online, take a photo of yourself. So now they're back to, it looks like they're back to each time that you go online that, you know, you take a picture of yourself. Damn, I didn't bring my speaker. What is this saying? Okay, so I'm gonna sit here for a minute and see if I get any orders. So this is an order right here at IHOP. So let me run over here to IHOP real quick. But now it's trying to make it seem like I didn't get the order. Okay, it says another driver matched this request. So this is what I'm saying. Somehow or another, I thought I got that order for IHOP. Then seconds later, it says, no, somebody else got this order. Okay. Even though I'm like 300 feet away from IHOP. So a lot of times, like in these kind of areas, you know, what I'll do is I'll go someplace where I know they don't have like that they don't have bus service, like Mesquite, Sachi. You know, they don't have bus service out there, so chances are if they don't know somebody that can give them a ride to the store, you know, they'll either have somebody do the shopping for them. Which is, like I said, you know, that could have been a quick $10, but somebody else, you know, snatched it the same time that I was snatching it, and they won. They got the order. And that's happened to me quite a few times. And that's what makes me like discouraged when it comes to you know, getting online and trying to, get orders, because it's bad enough. It's bad enough to have to, deal with all of the problems and the glitches and stuff that happen with the app, right? But then, the competition is going to be like this. It's like, what? Like you seen, I was ready to go because I thought that I had actually got the order. But my order stalled, my system, the app stalled out on me, and I'm like, why is it stalling out on me? So I just stopped and wait, right? And when I waited, then it flashed me a message that said somebody else got the order. And I'm like, how did that happen? How did it happen where they'll go ahead and give somebody else the order, knowing that you were supposed to get the order? You see? And this is where I start to wonder, is this how, when they have people who are a certain status on these, gig deliveries, that, if they're a certain status and then somebody else that doesn't have the same status as them, that they will outrank them, and then they decide to get the order to those people, right? Like, say there's, a full-timer with 100%, exception rate, and, and they just know that this is a full-timer, that they're out here, grinding, right? And I've never achieved that, that's not one of my, ambitions to achieve nothing like that, because for me, it's always just been about, making that extra money, that I might need. It had never occurred to me, well, it crossed my mind because they put it in the system, they put it in the platform. And the platform was, yes, you can rent a vehicle, or you can purchase a vehicle so that you can do deliveries. I'm like, well, that's nice. Remember when I was thinking about that? I was like, and I'm like, oh, but, you're going to have to be on that grind if you're going to be sitting up here, paying for a car note, insurance, and, whatever it takes for you to live your life, your bills, your sustainability. Okay? So, that's like, what, one order in almost an hour. That I didn't get. Right? Like I said, I believe I could have got it, except, their analytics, has said, hey, no, we got somebody else out here, they on platinum status, and they need to order more than I need to order. Yeah. I don't know what that said. It said all requests something. No orders. There's no orders. many states are requiring people, unless it's all of the states that are requiring people, if they're receiving like SNAP or welfare, that they have to put in like volunteer time or actual work time. Because I do believe that there were some states that required that. Oh my gosh, why is it doing that? Oh, it's just a trip radar. McDonald's for $4. And then moving all the way over there to 80. From McDonald's all the way over there to 80 for $4. Somebody snatched it up real quick. But what gets me is there is a McDonald's over there by 80. $3.56 McDonald's over there to 80. Now that's even less. First it said $4, now it's $3.56. So yeah, they want somebody to deliver them breakfast from McDonald's for $3.56. Not even the full $4. Okay? Some shopping done for them. Another McDonald's order for $5. Not $5, $4.54. Talking about this is a match. Whatever. So I am here in Town East, and I don't feel like running around for anything under $5. Period. Dang, it's 70 degrees already. Now, a lot of times when it comes to shopping, right, they'll do like Instacart. But I know when I checked Instacart, Instacart was full and they wasn't accepting any more drivers. You know, that was a while ago. But that was, you know, three orders in an hour, and two of them was $4 and under, and the one that was over $4, you know, somebody snatched that up. And I have yet to understand how that happened. I can make my assumptions. But I mean, if you know, you were out here early in the morning and you were able to do like some orders, and then somebody comes along with $4 and says, okay, you know, relax a little bit and take a $4 order, you know, okay, you know, if you want to. But I don't know, it seems to me if, you know, you're going to require somebody to do a $4 order, and it's going to take them somewhere else, right? I know they're like, you know, well, it's only going to take you 20 minutes. Yeah, but it's going to take you 20 minutes somewhere else, right? And if you don't get an order, you're still going to have to come back. So it may only take you 20 minutes to get there, but that's still 20 minutes that you have to come back. So now you done spent 40 minutes to go someplace for $4, right? And like I said, that's one of the reasons why, you know, I was like upset a little bit, because, you know, we would take these orders, and just because there's a McDonald's nearby, they would send us, you know, to another county or city. And I'm like, well, why would they do that when there's a McDonald's within the vicinity of this person? Right? Because like they were talking about this McDonald's over here in Town East going to go deliver over here in off of Highway 80, and I know that there's McDonald's over there off of Highway 80 that's closer, and I can't figure out why they would do that either. You know, and that had happened even when it came to shopping. You know, like they would have me go shopping at Albertsons over here, and then I would go over to and pass up an Albertsons on my way to deliver 40 minutes. This one is $9.
Head to your pickup at Tom Thumb 925 Northwest Highway.
See, that's over there by my house. But, like I said, it was over $5. There was 2 of them that came through. Both of them at Tom
Turn
Thumb.
left.
Both of them was at Tom Thumb's. And I'm like, Tom Thumb's, that's down there by you know, on the other side where I just came from.
Using the left lane, make a U-turn to stay on Northtown East Boulevard.
So it's telling me to go to freeway, but I'm not. So this says like 4 items from Tom Thumb's. We're gonna try to do it. But I ain't gonna say, I have not canceled the order unless I absolutely had to cancel it. But if these 4 items are like, you know, ridiculous stuff, I might cancel. I don't think you can do a U-turn. Try to do this delivery. And this is the thing that, you know, kind of tripped me out when it came to watching like Meaty Mama, who does, you know, showing her her deliveries and stuff, right? And you know, she's pretty much, you know, she's pretty much showing, you know, the obstacles and stuff that she faces, you know, doing deliveries. And she's been doing this for a while. She's been doing, you know, deliveries for a while. And you know, and then she'll be, you know, she'll be okay with the fact that she had made like $20 an hour. Okay. Well, you're not really making $20 an hour. Absolutely, right? Because number one, you know, there's the gas, there's the wear and tear on your car, there's the insurance, right? There's taxes. Okay, because you do have to pay taxes. And then there's also the time. So she'll be like, well, I went out, you know, according to, you know, the system, you know, she went out and did, you know, 3 hours and made, you know, an approximation of, you know, like $20 an hour, right? Now, unfortunately, she does live in an area that seems to do more deliveries. But there's been times.
In a quarter mile, turn right on Lyndon B. Johnson Freeway using the right lane.
There's been times where, you know, she had, you know, just dead. It's just been dead. No orders, you know, and she just wrapped it up and went home. She was just like, ain't no orders out here. Might as well go home, you know.
Turn right on Lyndon B. Johnson Freeway. In 1.1 mile, keep right.
So, like I said, I don't know if this was, you know, every state that, you know, has provided, you know, food stamps and has required, you know, the people who are getting the food stamps to you know, do some type of, you know, 80 hours of volunteer work or some type of work. But when they stop the snaps, you know, are you seeing, you know, a difference out there? You know, as to, you know, because there's no snaps, you know, why would they go to work? if they were only working to get the snaps. Right? So that was what I was thinking of when I went inside of the Dollar
In a quarter
Tree.
mile, turn left on Northwest Drive.
Because it was like they had made this whole big, move to make people get out there and do some kind of work in order to receive, your food stamps, your SNAP,
Turn left on Northwest Drive.
and then turn around and like, we're having a dispute here in Congress, and you're not gonna get your SNAP. So, Robert De Niro, he had some things to say about what's going on. And Robert De Niro was like, listen, if you have some legal issues, then that's where you have to deal with shit legally. You have to make some laws. Don't sit up here and starve the people, trying to resolve legal issues. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to share De Niro's video, because this is the problem that we have with the House and Congress, right? Where they're always putting on these different attachments and and trying to make one thing mean another thing, and it doesn't have no kind of relative relation at all, right? And that's why a lot of these situations get hung up, because they want to do healthcare, right? But instead of agreeing about the healthcare to a certain point, they want to say no, we want to have affordable healthcare for the alphabet community. We also want to have affordable healthcare for the immigrants, And one of the things that they were trying to say is, well, if you don't provide health care to the illegal immigrants, then you're going to have, people that are over here, contaminating the United States. And I'm like, that's the whole reason why they have to figure out legal ways to get into a country, to make sure that they have their vaccinations before they enter into a country, before they come in and contaminate a brand new area. Right? I mean, we had to have our pets vaccinated. If it makes sense with your pets, why doesn't it make sense when it comes to human beings? Then when you get all of these weird elements and diseases that we can't identify because it's not something familiar to our region, to our ecology, you guys are like, well, we don't know what that is. We don't know. It's just something that we're unfamiliar with, and the next thing you know, hey, we're sitting up here, just trying to deal with the symptoms because we don't know, what the problem is. And why we don't know what the problem is? Because we're dealing with something that is foreign to our region.
Turn left, then turn left.
Now you guys behave yourselves back there. You hear me? Let me see what they have me doing. Okay, it's not that bad. Hold on.